You are being watched and monitored all the time. That's what most people think when they see George Orwell's book, 1984. But the truth is that the book isn't just about Big Brother and constant surveillance. This is a book about how you can become a victim of domination and ideology. These days, you should think twice before writing anything using your cell phone. Everything you write can be used against you. Something that is considered harmless today can be reason for you to be fired in the future if someone digs up something that you said before. Or if you use certain forbidden words, you can be found, tagged, and censored. We're living in a cultural war and words are being used as weapons. Words are weaponized. That is why you may have now the feeling that we're losing control of what words mean. There are people who say that it's like the world is upside down. Certain concepts are being distorted before our eyes, and there is a strategic reason of cultural domination behind all of this. This is one of the books that everyone should read in school. It is a classic and paints a scary picture of a totalitarian society where the government controls every aspect of citizens' lives. But that is just the surface. What's really interesting is how you can be controlled. Your thoughts, your memory, and your feelings can all be captured and manipulated through language and surveillance. This can be done through the use of slogans and posters and videos to constantly remind you of a certain narrative and then dominate your mind and soul. In the book 1984, the main message is that citizens should remember that Big Brother is watching you. And this is used to cause fear. However, in our real life, there are other narratives that are being imposed on us, not only by governments but also by other powerful groups as well, regardless of ideology. That is, the fight is not only of the totalitarian government against the people, but is also of different elite groups that seek to dominate the way you think, as well as to limit the way you can express yourself. If you're interested in language and communication, you should really study this book deeply. This is not just a work of fiction. It is a warning about the dangers of propaganda and cultural manipulation. And by understanding how domination happens, we can better protect ourselves from these dangers in our lives. In the end of this summary, you come out with a new perspective on the world around us. You're going to be able to see through the manipulation and the propaganda that is being used right now to control us, and you will have the tools to defend yourself against it. Attention, this is just a summary of a book. Please read the full disclaimer before continuing. The story of 1984 is the worst part of the book. You should focus on the message behind the story. Okay, yes, the story is good, but since the message is so valuable, we can say that the story is the worst part. It was written in 1949, and the plot takes place in a dystopian future, April of 1984, in a world that has been divided into superpowers after a series of wars and economic collapses. In the world, the inner party, totalitarian, does not accept any kind of opposition, and even negative thoughts about the party is considered crime. It is called thought crime. At the center of this inner party is a mysterious figure, Big Brother, who's always watching the citizens through telescreen, kind of a smart TV. People are forced to keep this TV always on. They never know if they're actually being watched or not. It's quite similar to the laptop camera, with the difference that they didn't have the option of putting some sticker or duct tape in front of the webcam. Now, due to this surveillance, Big Brother is a source of fear, but also of adoration. The protagonist of the novel, Winston Smith, works in the Ministry of Truth, rewriting history. Winston is unhappy in his everyday life, and then he starts keeping a diary which he has to hide from the telescreen. He meets Julia, and they start a relationship which is considered a grave act of betrayal because love should not exist in this totalitarian society. Winston and Julia are eventually captured, and they're taken to the Ministry of Love, where they're tortured. And then they undergo some brainwashing until the point that one betrays the other. In the end, Winston is completely indoctrinated and he starts to love Big Brother. Now maybe you're upset that I told you the story of the book. If you think that this was a spoiler, You didn't understand the true value of the book. The story and the plot of what happens to the characters, that's just a small detail. It is a vehicle used by the author to deliver the true message. 1984 teaches us what the tactics of control and domination are. Pay attention to the power of language, rewriting history, and constant surveillance. When you read in the book, pay special attention to the ways in which the party maintains control over the citizens. Think about the ways in which these same tactics are being used in our own society. Regardless of your political opinion, don't just think of the government trying to manipulate us. Also, think about the big tech companies. Think about the television networks, newspapers, and also the families that own these means of communication. Even think about social media influencers because they receive sponsorship from banks, from big companies. Nowadays, we are not living under a single totalitarian regime. There are multiple forces trying to manipulate us, watching us. Your phone knows who you talk to, the content of the conversations, the pictures you take, how much money you have in the bank, the bills you pay, how many hours you sleep, where you've been. It might even sometimes listen to your conversations and take videos and pictures without you knowing. See, in my personal case, I'm also a victim. As a content producer, I have to take additional caution. If I come here and tell you some specific examples, I might be cancelled. There are several examples of language manipulation and history distortion I simply can't be talking about openly. They might just take this video down, the whole channel down, they might label it as fake news, as disinformation. You probably know about which subjects I'm not allowed to talk about. So instead of me pointing fingers and saying that this and that subject is problematic, I'm simply helping you to develop your own critical thinking. You are the one who's going to be able to identify where language is currently being used as a weapon of war. Therefore, don't focus too much on the story of 1984. Yes, the story is good, but the message, that message is even better. The plot and the characters are not the main point of the book. The main point is to make us aware of the dangers of propaganda and cultural manipulation, language control, surveillance, and other tools that are being used to shape our behavior and dominate us. And give us tools also to defend ourselves against it. The book is a warning, a reminder that we need to stay vigilant and question the information that is being presented to us. Who are the powerful actors in our society? What is their agenda? How do they want us to think? About what do they want us to think? What do they allow us to talk about? It doesn't matter if today you are against the current government or not. The control that maybe you support today can turn against you tomorrow. We should be aware of the dangers of propaganda and manipulation, but we should also remember that we have the power to resist. The masses in the book have the power to overthrow the party. We should unite. We should use our collective power to resist the forces that are trying to control us. And this resistance must start with the development of our intelligence, our habit of reading, because only true knowledge can set us free. Language is being used as a weapon to control what we think and how we feel about certain topics. There are powerful groups interested in fragmenting society. Have you noticed how certain words, certain phrases suddenly become popular? The more absurd and meaningless they are, the more they are embraced by certain groups, and they're also ridiculed, rejected by other groups. Have you noticed how language is being used as a weapon to manipulate new generations? Pay attention to the lyrics, for example, of the most successful songs. Think about the type of message behind them. All of this is not by chance. There are people using words as weapons to make our society more polarized and start fighting each other over trivial reasons. Hate engages. Many people profit from it. Again, I'm not going to give examples. Just think about it. You tell me. You can write in the comments with examples what you've seen these days, how language is being used as a tool for domination. In the book, the party slogans are: war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. What? Is it not a complete absurdity? Now keep this sense of absurdity and look in your everyday life for polarizing messages that you've seen appearing from time to time. Can you see parallels in situations where some groups are trying to push some absurdities to you and you feel like you should be quiet, you shouldn't be questioning that absurdity? That's what proves that words are used as weapons as part of a cultural war. Some groups use language strategically to divide and conquer. It is very scary. It is not just governments doing that. Big tech is also doing that. That is why we have to be aware, we have to question the information that has been presented to us. Only with this awareness we can resist those who are trying to control our thoughts or actions. It doesn't matter if you are left or right or center, it is irrelevant. What matters, they are trying to control us. So the first thing we need to have is to become aware of what's happening. So the next time you see language being distorted in front of your eyes, remember how words can be used as weapons. And this is where Newspeak comes in. In a book, the government creates this official language to restrict thoughts and ideas. They remove words that represent opposite concepts, so people can't even think of them. Here is an example just to illustrate. You can use the word free to talk about a free seat or free beer, but you can't use free as in freedom. Therefore, there is no freedom of expression. If there is no word for freedom, the concept of freedom doesn't even exist. And that's what Orwell was talking about in his essay, Politics and the English Language. He believed that the decline of a language had political and economic causes. He sees how the languages of countries under dictatorships had deteriorated over time. So as a practical lesson for your life, always keep a clear understanding of how language is being used as a weapon today. See how language is being used to polarize and divide us. When you see a word being used in an unusual way, think about whether this is a natural evolution of the language or if it is an artificial, imposed, forced to use that is being pushed by groups who have a certain agenda. We have to be aware of this. We have to question the information that is being presented to us. Only with this awareness we can resist those who are trying to control our thoughts, our actions. Once again, does not matter if you're left or right or center, it's irrelevant. What matters is that they are trying to control us. So the first thing that we need to be aware of is to understand what is happening. And the next time you see language being distorted in front of your eyes, remember how words can be used as weapons. The Ministry of Truth already exists, and it's distributed. Part of the power is in the hands of the government, but part is in the hands of big tech. The danger of rewriting history is a theme that is present in the book 1984, but it is also something that is happening in our days. The media has a huge role in shaping what we know and also what we don't know about the past. And they usually choose to ignore stories that don't fit the narrative that they want to impose. It is scary to think that the history we learn in school may not be impartial. And whenever you start investigating, you might find out that many universities have been indoctrinating generations of scholars to follow a certain narrative and suppress other narratives. As George Orwell himself said, history is written by the winners. And again, I am not going to give examples. I'm just inviting you to reflect. Look for cases in which politicians, billionaires, companies, authorities, who said one thing in the past and then completely changed their narrative later, pretending that nothing had happened. It is as if they were trying to erase the past. Narrative control is a way of rewriting the past to dominate the present and shape the future. This problem becomes even more serious when the large population suffers from a lack of intellectual preparation. People who don't know how to articulate themselves to point out the problems. This is how impunity happens. See, a healthy society needs to be able to hold people accountable for their actions and words whenever it is necessary. A dysfunctional society is one that stays silent in the face of abuse, or even worse, it's not even able to understand that there are abuses. That's why the government creates a Ministry of Truth, whose function is to rewrite history to meet the needs of the party. Books are rewritten to always be in line with the narrative of the party. Books that were not compatible with the truth, they were banned. They change who the enemy is and what happened in the past. The monopoly of narrative is a way for them to control the present and the future. It is worth reading how the book makes a distinction between truth and fact. And it explores the ethical and moral implications of manipulating facts for political gain. Orwell was concerned with the idea that the concept of truth was basically disappearing from the world. Back in the 1940s, he saw how people were easily willing to believe in lies, especially if it was convenient for them. He also saw how history could be distorted or erased easily. This is something that is happening in our own time. It is important that we are aware of this, and that we are able to question the information that is being presented to us. Even if you're just trying to manage your money, you've got to be aware of the danger of rewriting history. Back in 2016, the Ethereum blockchain network suffered a hack, and then the centralized power holders of Ethereum decided to rewrite history. You can see all the details of this in the episode number 15 of the Money Arata series. See, because Ethereum has owners who can control the network, these owners use the power to delete the transaction that siphoned off the funds, and they pretended that nothing had happened. Some people think, well, okay, that's good, right? That there are people in charge, that there is a controlling entity that can rewrite history. That is just one more proof that we always have people willing to submit to power, to Big Brother. Rewriting history isn't just something that happens in totalitarian regimes. Even in democratic countries, politicians, corporations, billionaires, they try to put their own spin on events to benefit their own position, their ideology. They don't do this alone. They use money to fund artists, NGOs, social media influencers, athletes, celebrities, even scientists and teachers to spread their narrative. You need to be aware of all of this and resist the manipulation of history. We can't let them erase the past and control the present and the future. We need to remember that history is important and it shapes who we are as a society. We need accurate and true information about the past in order to make informed decisions now about the future. That's one of the main reasons you need to develop the habit of reading high-quality books. Unlike easy-to-consume content like short videos, viral content, or even podcasts, or even book summary videos like this one, your brain goes into a different mode of reasoning when it has to process information written in a book. I invite you to visit now the address arata.se/intelligence to strengthen your reading habit and your ability to be critically thinking. Books are powerful in ensuring freedom, which is why books are usually controlled whenever there is an authoritarian regime. Reading is a valuable habit. See, our Arata Academy Summary series focuses on practical actions that can bring a benefit to your life. So even though today we're for the first time talking about a work of fiction, our summary here is not meant to be a literary critique. See, we didn't talk much about who the author is, what is the literary style. No. 1984 is a book that is worth reading, and I hope that this summary has inspired you now to go and read the complete work. Watch out for ideology becoming your main source of identity. There are powerful forces trying to make you one of them. One of the most disturbing things is how the party can brainwash people into truly believing in a party's propaganda and defending their ideology. When we think of 1984, we usually think of this Apple commercial, right? The old one, the giant screen where there is Big Brother speaking to a big group of similarly looking people who are almost hypnotized. They're in this trance, this state of collective thinking. They're no longer individuals. They simply become another brick in the wall, whose existence serves only to defend the interests of the ideology. In the book, we also see how children are trained from an early age to report anyone who goes against the party, even their own parents. This type of manipulation and control is truly frightening, especially considering that situations like this have occurred in different times in our history, both in right-wing and left-wing dictatorships. So please, once again, put aside polarization. Focus on the importance of freedom. It's even more disturbing to see this happening again. Now in times of a military peace, but of a cultural war. Leaders of different ideologies want to capture you so that you spend all day consuming content that only talks about the same ideology. They join WhatsApp, Telegram groups only with people of the same ideology, and then you become one of them. Then you enter into conflict with rival groups, often ignoring reality. Do you notice this? In the book, it's not only children who are affected, we also see adults, Winston and Julia, true characters, who are deeply in love, but then they're captured. They go to the Ministry of Love to be tortured until they no longer have feelings for each other. Instead, their love is replaced by love for the state, for Big Brother. Try thinking about your own life, the people in your family, your old friendships. Can you see that in recent years there has been a process of distancing, of fragmentation, and even hostility among groups, among individuals, and an obsession with political themes and parties, different types of ideologies? So as a practical final message of this summary, please take a moment. Think about the ideologies and the beliefs that are most important to you. Would you value these ideologies more than you love your own family, your own friends? Have you noticed any distance between you and the people who you were more connected to a few years ago? Is this distance because of different ideologies? Remember that freedom is more important than any ideology. It is important to remember that this kind of manipulation and control is not limited only to the dystopian world of the book. We can see this happening in our own society today. People are becoming increasingly polarized and deriving their sense of identity from the causes that they fight for. This militancy is getting so strong that it is causing the separation of families and the breaking of friendships. It is important to be aware of these dangers and question the information that is presented to us. Developing the habit of reading books is something that can help us to escape manipulations and have independent thinking. It is important to be aware, to develop our true intelligence, our ability to have independent, critical thinking and not allow emotions or ideologies to control us. We are the ones who have to be in charge and control what is being presented and how we process that information. 1984 is a classic work that shows us how control of the mind and emotions is essential for the maintenance of a totalitarian regime. Constant surveillance, manipulation of information, and propaganda, they're tools used to control the population. It is important to develop the habit of reading books so that we can escape these manipulations and have independent thinking. And that's why I invite you now to participate in a special class by visiting the address arata.se/intelligence.